My name is Kevin Fernandez and welcome to my channel, Gamers Genie. Today we're going to be learning how to play the deck builder worker placement game, Dune Imperium. This 1 to 4 player game designed by Paul Denham and published by Direwolf Games. In the desert planet of Dune, you are striving to collect the spice and also water to survive. The bannermen from all over Arrakis are gathering to fight for the spice. You take on the lead as one of the great houses in Arrakis. Will you be victorious, or will you just have your blood smeared all over the sand? Find out as we go to the table and learn how to play Dune Imperium. Place the game board in your play area, then place the following components on it. Place the Mentat in the Mentat space on the board. Place the 4 Alliance tokens on the marked areas of the faction's influence track. So we got the Fremen, Bene Gesserit, Spacing Guild, and the Emperor. Separate the conflict cards by their backs. Conflict 1, 2, and 3. Shuffle the 4 conflict 3 cards. And place them face down in the marked area of the game board. So it's right where I just placed it. It's not really. Shuffle the 10 conflict 2 cards and deal 5 of them on top of the conflict 3. Return the rest to the box. Shuffle the 4 conflict 1 cards and randomly place 1 on the top of the conflict 2 stack and return the rest to the box. You should now have a 10 card conflict deck on the game board with 1 conflict 1 card on top, 5 conflict 2 cards below it, and then 4 conflict 3 cards on the bottom. Return the unused conflict cards to the game box without looking at them. Prepare these cards along the edge of the game board, so here and here. Shuffle the Intrigue deck and place it face down. Shuffle the Imperium deck and place it face down. From it, deal 5 cards. Face up to form an Imperium Row. Next to the Imperium Row, which is right here, place the reserve cards in 3 stacks. The Arrakis Liaison, the Fold Space cards, and the Spice Must Flow. Each player takes a leader and places it in front of them. Leaders have 1 to 3 icons after their names. Leaders with more icons are strategically more complex. For your first game, it is recommended that each player chooses a leader with just 1 icon. This is a level 1 because it's got that. Here's a level 2, and this is a level 3, which is the hardest to use. For the Baron specifically, he has 4 tokens with his face on it that looks exactly like this. You need to randomly draw 1 for that to work. I'm just letting you guys know for that. He's the only one that needs those specific tokens. But for this game, we're going to me and Jordan will both be using these level 1 characters. Each player takes a 10 card starting deck, shuffles it, and places it face down in their supply to the left of their leader. It says deck on the card. Each player takes one water piece and places it in their supply on their card, like so. Create a bank next to the game board containing Solari, Spice, and the remaining water tokens. And I placed them in these bowls just for easy access and setup. These are not meant to be limited. If you run out or need more, make any convenient substitution. Each player chooses a color and takes all of its components. Place 2 of your agents on your leader. So I will be gold and Jordan will be blue. Because this will become a 2-player game, we will be choosing the green to represent a third computer player represented by the game. You place 2 of your agents on your player card. You can place it anywhere, like I have done. And I've done the same for Jordan's. Place the third agent on the game board, right here where it says Swordsmaster. And we'll just place the other third guy down at the bottom of the board. Place 1 of your 2 discs on the score track. Like so. In a 4-player game, we place them on the 1 space. However, seeing that this is going to be a 2-player game later on, or even if you are playing a 3-player game, you start at the 0 space. Place your combat marker. The combat markers look like this on the 0 space of the combat track. Place 4 cubes, 1 of each player's colors, at the bottom of the alliance track. So we got me, our games player. You can also use this as an example for like a setup for a 3-player game too. And a 4-player game. The only difference is where you have the score markers. Like so. The other 12 cubes represent your troops. Place 3 in one of the 4 garrison spots on the board. Place the remaining components in your supply in clear view of all players. Determine the first player randomly and give them the first player token. And that completes the setup. Dune is played in a series of rounds which is completed in 5 phases in this specific order. Round start, player's turn, combat, makers, and recall. Each round begins by revealing a new conflict card from the top of the conflict deck. Place it face up in the space next to the conflict deck. Next, each player draws 5 cards from their deck, forming their hand for the round. Starting with the player who has the first player marker and continuing clockwise, players take 1 turn at a time. On your turn, you will take either an agent turn or a reveal turn. You take agent turns until you run out of agents to place. Then you will take the reveal turn. Note, the agent turns are optional. If you choose to, you can take a reveal turn while you still have the agents instead of taking the agent turn. Once you have taken a reveal turn, your turns are skipped for the rest of the phase, while the other players finish taking their turns Once all players have taken a reveal turn, this phase ends. You may play any plot intrigue cards you have during this phase at any point during one of your own agent's reveal turns. In an agent turn, you play one agent card from your hand in front of you, using it to send an agent from your leader to an unoccupied space on the game board. This board space must have an icon in its upper left corner matching one of the agent icons. So, the signet ring has 3 of the most basic icons. So that means I can send one of my agents to one of these 3 icons. You must choose only one agent icon on your card. One card can't send multiple agents. You can't send an agent to a board space that already has an agent. You must pay any cost or meet any requirements of the board space. So to move to the Haga Basin, I have to spend 1 water, and to move to the Great Flat, I have to spend 2 water. I don't have 2 water, I only have 1. When you play a card, you send an agent to a board space. You gain the effect of the board space, so I gain a troop into battle, and I get to draw a new card, as well as the effect in the agent box of the card. If the board space belongs to one of the factions, you also move your cube 1 space up. So, if I chose to play diplomacy instead of the signet ring, I could take, well, let's say Jordan went to another space, and then I went over to here. I get to take a fold space card, and I get to move 1 up on my alliance. You may carry out all these effects in any order. Some card effects are written out, but many are iconized. There is a board space guide sheet for a full explanation of all the board spaces, as well on the back of your rule book. But I'll let you discover that for yourself. Arrows on cards and on the board indicate that there is a cost you must pay to get the effect. You are never forced to pay such a cost. However, if you don't, you won't gain the effect. So, I have to lower my influence with one of the factions I'm allied with, pay 2 spice, and then I get to go up 2 on another alliance board. It can be from where I'm just starting, or it can be one that I'm already working on. But that's the cost that I have to pay for that card. At the start of each round, the current conflict card is revealed. That's this card down here, offering rewards for which the players will compete in combat. At the start of each round, the current conflict, whenever the cube icon appears on a card or a board space, so Carthage has a cube icon, and Arakeen has a cube icon, as well as I apologize if I mispronounce this, the Stech Tabar, that also has one, but we're going to just talk about these 2 right here. So, you recruit 1 troop, take a troop from your supply, and place it into battle like we did previously. If you run out of troops in your supply, you can't recruit more until some return there. You can't earn rewards with troops sitting in your garrison. However, you may deploy them to conflict when you send an agent to a combat space. So the combat spaces are here, here, and there are some in the alliance side as well. Combat spaces are board spaces that feature a desert illustration and a cross swords. While most of these appear on the planet Dune itself, 3 appear with the factions. 1 with the Spacing Guild, that's the Highliner, and 2 with the Fremen. That's the Still Suits and the Hardy Warriors. When you send an agent to a combat space, you may deploy troops to the conflict area, the area of the game board in the center of the garrison. You may deploy any or all troops recruited during your current turn from both board spaces and the card you played, plus up to 2 more troops from your garrison. Any troops you recruit but choose not to deploy to the conflict are placed in the garrison as usual. So, for example, let's say when I played my diplomacy card that I played earlier, this one, instead of going to the fold space, so I put that back, I go to Hardy Warriors. Well, first of all, I have to spend 1 water, but then I get to take 2 of my troops instead of 1. Oh, that one's already there. So I place 2 in there, and then I can add 2 more if I wanted to, or 1 more, or I could keep them all in there. Some conflict cards reward players control over one of the 3 spaces on Dune. If you win such a conflict, you take a control marker from your supply and place a flag on it in the flag space below. So let's say we moved on, and we have this the siege of Carthage. So let's say, well, Jordan would add 1 more troop because she went here, and then we'll place her in Carthage. So we add a troop into battle plus 1 more. We'll add 1 more for me too. So because I have more, I would win. And so then I would take my flag and place it right there on the Carthage space. While your control marker is on one of these spaces, you receive the bonus shown. So you get 1 Solari if someone goes there that's not your marker from the player who went there. Whenever any player, yourself included, sends an agent there, the bonus is 1 Solari for Arakeen or Carthage and 1 spice for the Imperial Basin. When a conflict card is revealed for a space that you already control, you receive a defensive bonus. You may deploy 1 troop from your supply to the conflict. So if I already had Carthage under my control, I can add 1 more to really make sure I keep that. There are 3 board spaces on Arrakis with a marker icon where you may harvest spice. The Great Flat, Haga Basin, and Imperial Basin. When you send an agent to one of them, you gain the base value of spice shown. So this gives you 1, 2, 3, plus any bonus spice that has accumulated there. And I'll show you how that works later on. When a player has no more agents for agent turns, that player takes a reveal turn. This consists of the following steps in order. We reveal cards, and you reveal them like so. Reveal all cards remaining in your hand, placing them face up in play in front of you. Keep them separate from other cards you played previously on agent turns. Now you gain the effects of the reveal boxes for all the cards you just revealed. That's the dark blue at the bottom. You may resolve reveal effects in any order you like. In addition, you may use persuasion that you've gained to acquire new cards from your deck for your deck between or after your reveal effects. So if there was any like swords, and the dagger card has that, I could add that to my fighting bonus. And then I just move the marker to that. And we'll talk about that. We're almost there. But since I have 4, I can recruit someone that has 4, so I will recruit this guild ambassador. Persuade is what we're saying. I'm persuading him to come to my side. Next, you set your strength. Total your strength for the combat this round. Each troop you have in the conflict is worth 2 strength. So that's pretty neat. Each sword you reveal during your reveal turn is worth 1 strength. And there's a little chart down here at the bottom that you can double check when you play this game. You must have at least 1 troop in the conflict to have any strength. If your last troop is ever removed, your strength becomes 0. You can't be increased by any means, including swords on cards you revealed. When you've totaled your strength, announce it to your opponents and move your combat marker to the corresponding space. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So I get to move it to 10, and Jordan has 2, 4, 6, so she moves it to 6. And this guy has 0, so he stays put. If your strength is over 20, you just flip your combat marker over to this 20 plus side and just keep counting score from there. And you just place it at the beginning of the track again. After that, you just remove all your cards, place them in your discard pile, and move on to the next step. When combat is resolved during this phase, but first, players have a chance to play combat and combat intrigue cards, starting with the player who has the first player marker and continuing clockwise. Each player with at least 1 troop in the conflict may play any number of combat intrigue cards or may pass. You're not required to pass just because you passed earlier in the combat phase. Once all players involved in the combat phase passed consecutively, then resolve the combat. So, let's say Jordan spent 2 spice and played Private Army. She then can add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strength to her score. She then moves her token up and then discards the intrigue card. As we have just adjusted the combat marker accordingly on the combat track, remember, if you have no troops in the conflict, your strength is 0. So even if you have a card that can change it, it doesn't add to that. A few combat intrigue cards do something when you win a conflict. You do not play these now before resolving the combat. Instead, you wait until you've won and then play them. Rewards from the conflict card are given to players based on their strength as shown on their combat track. So technically I do not have 20. I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. The player with the highest strength wins the conflict, which is Jordan, and gains the troop reward, which means she gets her flag on Carthage and she goes up 1 victory point. The player with the second highest strength gains the second reward. So I get an intrigue card and some spice. In a 4-player game only, the player with the third highest strength receives the third reward. A player with 0 strength does not receive any reward. So if we are playing a 3-player game, or even the 2-player game that I've kind of been going through right now, you never get that third one. Only in a 4-player game. Refer to the rulebook's back cover for a guide to the icons used in conflict cards. When players tie for first place, no one wins the conflict. The tied players each receive the second reward, so an intrigue card and some spice for that specific one. The other 2 players can still compete for that third reward. When players tie for second place, they each receive the third reward. Players tying for third place receive nothing. Once all rewards have been given, each player takes their troops from the conflict and puts them in their supply, not their garrison. Reset all combat markers to 0, like so. In this phase, which is now the Maker's phase, the spice can accumulate on certain board spaces. Check each of the 3 board spaces with a maker icon, the Great Flat, the Haga Basin and the Imperial Basin. If the space does not have an agent, place one spice on the bank on that space. So there is an agent on the Imperial Basin, but there is not one on the Haga Basin and the Great Flat. So we place some spice and refill it up. The spice is added to any bonus spice that may already be there from previous rounds, so it can build over time. If any player is at 10 or more victory points on the score track, or if the conflict deck is empty, the end game is triggered. Return the Mentat to its designated space, which is right here in Lensard. Players recall their agents, returning them to their leaders. Pass the first player marker clockwise, so this would go over to Jordan. Then begin a new round with phase 1. So, say it's like a little more further. No one has reached number 10 yet, so we just do that and we move on. So, the Mentat at the player agents are returned to the appropriate places, and the first player marker passes clockwise to the next player. However, let's say we move there, and if we did make it to 10, then endgame is triggered. So first, you may play and resolve any endgame entry cards and intrigue cards, and they're all in this intrigue deck. You get 10 spice if you play this card at the end game. Then whoever has the most victory points is declared the winner. In case of a tie, tiebreakers in order is number 1, amount of spice, then amount of Solari, then water, then garrison troops. And that should break the tie. If you're still tied, then I guess we're just going to have to play again. Oh darn. And that's all you need to know to play Dune Imperium. If you have any questions about this game, please put them in the comments below and I'll get to them as soon as possible. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and ring the notification bell to be notified for videos just like these. I want to thank everybody who participated in our last poll. That is why we are doing this video. If you want to participate in the next poll, which should be coming out very soon, all you need to do is just head on to Gamers Genie social media pages. We post these on Facebook, Twitter, and Games Corner. I'll leave a link to all those in the description below. I want to thank right now our Patreon supporters. Your help means a lot. If you would like to be a Patreon supporter yourself, there's a link to that in the description below. Be on the lookout for our gameplay video on Dune Imperium. But until then, thanks for the views.